I dream a world where man no other man will scorn, where love will bless the earth, and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. A world I dream where black or white, whatever race you may be, will share the bounties of the earth, and every man is free, where wretchedness will hang its head, and joy, like a pearl, attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream, my world. Langston Hughes.
Welcome to the Lost Traveler Podcast. I am your ever-loving host, Henry Cameron Allen, and I'm here with a very special guest indeed, somebody who I've not met yet in person, but I have a feeling we're going to be fast friends. This is Terry Lynn Moore of Denver, Colorado. She is a grandmother and a former police officer and mental health counselor. She is an artist and dream catcher of the human experience, which I love so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
It's so exciting to finally talk to you. We've connected a little bit back and forth on Facebook, and I'm so impressed with the journey that your life has taken in the way you've expressed it. I'm dying to find out more. Let's start at the very beginning. Where did all this goodness come from?
Oh my gosh, it has been a long and bumpy journey, let me tell you. I was born in Denver 64 years ago to an African-American police officer. He was the first African-American police officer hired in Denver after this long hiatus between the Civil War and 1947 when he was hired. They only hired one other black constable. So
Amazing.
My father was a lot of firsts. My mother was an educator, but more importantly, she was a genius. My mother graduated. She'd finished all of her high school studies by the time she was 12. She had her bachelor's degree at the age of 18. And she had her teaching certificate in Oklahoma at the age of 19. So I'm from some very powerful people.
Good stock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And watching these amazing people, and I'm sure they were surrounded by other amazing people, because like attracts like, and people on the same frequency tend to orbit one another. What was your inspiration? Obviously, your father was an inspiration to go into the force, and what were your other inspirations? Your mom into counseling. I mean, how did you find your way to where you are, and also as an artist?
Well, as I said, it was a bumpy road. My parents are beautiful human beings, but they had their flaws. And my father struggled for his entire adult life with alcoholism. He had been sent to World War II, where the 92nd, regiment, the 92nd Regiment, was sent to Po, Italy. And it was an African-American regiment, and they were sacrificed for the more valuable white regiments. Right. And my father came back very damaged and would never talk about what happened in Italy. So I think he tried to drown his sorrows and pain in alcohol and still do his job. So, that was difficult. My mother was a very angry person. She grew up in Jim Crow, Texas.
Yeah.
So she had a lot of experience of blatant racism and just lots of difficulties. And then her parents were also wonderful people with their flaws, and they sent her away to boarding school, and a lot of unfortunate things happened at boarding school. So my mom had
Mm.
a lot of baggage as well. But these two human beings got together and made two children, myself and my brother, and they made sure that we were educated, we were well dressed, we learned to speak well, we learned to read and write well, we furthered our education. And my brother is a police officer as well. So,
Mm.
and then my grandfather, my dad's dad, was a sheriff in Southern Colorado. So we have some real strong bones to our character. And my mother's love of education. I read an entire set of encyclopedias in under a year
Wow.
because of my mother's love of education. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's, there is no wonder the PTSD, as we know it now to be, of people who are coming back from war, but also the PTSD of other battles that we fight, the way that we carry it, the crutches that we use to get through life. And, obviously, as somebody who is not born of the African American experience, I can only imagine and strive to empathize and validate and elevate the voices that are trying to elevate other voices, to say, you know what, this is important that we all know. This is American history. And we have to face that and strive to understand one another, so that we can all be elevated out of the experience. So I am excited to delve deep with you today into not only that subject, but also how a person's biography, as you say, good, bad, and otherwise, however we qualify those experiences, how they can elevate us and therefore elevate others through our work as artists, through our work as educators, community leaders, and people who care.
Absolutely.
That's a common ground, I think, that we can all find if we choose to look for it. How do we hold that? And this is not only for you and I, but this is for listeners in over 20 countries around the world. How do we hold that collectively? Big question.
For me, there are parts of being in lockdown that I have loved. I
Yeah.
live in my childhood home that my mom and dad built for us when we were 10. I was 10 years old and my brother was 7. And we moved in when I was 11 and he was 8. This house is stunning. But what was really cool when we went into lockdown is that the entire world around us went quiet. It was stunning, the quiet that I had missed since childhood. And I didn't think my grandchildren would ever experience that. So we went back to quiet and went back to being still and listening around us. And I think that for me, it became a meditation. And I became more aware of everything in my yard, the bees, the butterflies, the little flowers poking up through the snow. It just became a meditation. And as a painter, I'm thrilled to be at home. And I was able to paint and paint and paint and get all of these emotions out on canvas. I was able to write. So I think there are good parts to being under COVID and being under lockdown. People are taking care of their homes in a way they never have before. They're redesigning and redecorating and getting rid of things. It's a great time to gather ourselves as well and get rid of stuff in our minds that no longer serve us. It is a really good time to realize that not only is this a really cool time for being peaceful, but it's also a really cool time to get ready because we don't know what's coming. So we have to get strong and prepare ourselves for the future that is coming our way. And we also have to make plans for what do we want that future to look like.
And we're going to take a brief pause right now to hear a word from our sponsor.
I want it to be peaceful. I would love to see us walk away from capitalism and go towards something that supports every human being on the planet and not just the top 1%. I would love to see us change to a resource-based economy. I would love to see us embrace a Star Trek economy and take care of each other. And that is possible, but it's only possible if we dream it into being.
Yeah, at every level. In your home, it begins in your home, and then your town and your community, and then your state and your country and the world, you know. I think that's possible. I don't know that we've ever experienced that in human history or even a semblance of it. But that's what's so exciting to me about this time, is that it provides us all an even playing field that we can share, and we can connect to one another on this level and say, oh, that's what you're about. Oh, let me learn more about that. You know, I've taken it upon myself because I have a lot of friends. I've been out of the country for the most part for about 3 years. And so I've been able to watch everything sort of from outside the fishbowl. And I've seen the suffering, and I've seen the challenges that my friends who are, you know, at every level of society are experiencing. Those who felt like they had a secure life, who all of a sudden the rug has been pulled out, their industry has collapsed. You know, people who are friends of mine, who are African American, who are struggling big time with the struggle that's always been there, but now it's been in a magnifying glass in a way perhaps that it hasn't been, at least in a very long time. And I don't know, it feels like all of a sudden the Black Lives Matter movement has just sort of faded a little bit, and people aren't so apt to talk about things. And, you know, I feel a responsibility to use whatever platform I have to share in conversations. And I don't think it's Black folks who have to be the ones to explain again what the challenges are and what they have been and where we are going forward. But I do think that those who are willing and able, because I know this takes a lot of toll psychically and emotionally, to talk about, those who are willing to have the dialogue and have the difficult conversations and answer the hard questions for themselves. Not everyone is a representative of the whole. You know, everyone has their own unique journey, but there's still common denominators that are born out of the same roots. And I think that these conversations are vital. So I thank you for coming to the table with your expertise, because it's needed.
One of the things that makes us expert is the willingness to educate ourselves.
That's right.
Since we have been on lockdown since March, I've read almost 50 books.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. 50, from front to back, I've read 50 books, and over a third of those books were on racism, history, self-improvement, but mostly racism and history. I read White Fragility, I think 3 or 4 times. So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. I read that about 4 times. I'm currently reading Michelle Obama's Becoming. We have to take it upon ourselves to get that education so that we can go out and speak and edify and do it in such a way that we as you said, Henry, that we uplift people and we make them want to come with us, not, you know, beat people over the head and you're so dumb and you're so stupid and how ignorant can you be, but to enlighten them and and share information with them that will help us to move forward.
I have a question.
Sure.
In your conversations that you have had with non-Black folks, people who have not walked the walk, but have had their own perspectives, their own experiences, have you felt enlightened by the questions that people have asked of you, or the things even that you're hearing in social media, questions and comments and opinions that are emerging now from the non-African American world? Has that enlightened you at all in your experience to
Absolutely. If
what's
you
happening?
Yeah, if you look on my Facebook page, I regularly will put a thing out there that says, my friends, they make me laugh. My friends educate me. My friends check me when I'm wrong. And my friends inspire me. I have white friends that are allies that will stand in the trenches with us forever. And I have white people that I have checked. When George Floyd died, a very prominent white woman that was a friend of mine, and she has since left my Facebook world, came on my page and asked, and my page is not the right page to ask this particular question in the way that she did. She came on and she said, I don't see why you all are so upset. He's nothing but a criminal. Oh my gosh. The pylon. I didn't say anything to her. The pylon that happened, I unfriended her and disconnected her so she wouldn't die from the pylon.
Yeah, protective measure, yeah.
Ooh, she got checked, and she got checked by brilliant people who had amazing responses to, he is a human being, and we should not be punished to death for past transgressions. It was amazing. So yes, I have allies of every color. I have allies that are LGBTQ. I have allies that are transgender. There are witches on my page. There are Christians. There are Muslims. Everybody is here, and everybody contributes.
And what's the common denominator? Because I experienced the very same thing in my circles, but not only in social media, but actively in the world. And I know what it is for me, but I want to hear from you, what you feel that it is about you, or about the time, or about those people that have allowed for that common ground to exist amongst human beings, that sacred space, I call it.
I think the people in my circle, not just on my Facebook page, but in my entire circle, are highly empathetic. They are in touch with nature. They are in touch with themselves. They have done the work. And that for me would be the common denominators.
Beautiful.
And we'll be right back right after this. Listen up. How can a sock, a patch, or an insole help so many people live their best lives pain-free, balanced, and strong? Scientifically speaking, there is a proprietary pattern embedded in Vox, socks, and insoles that touches specific neuropoints and other receptors in the metatarsal or ball of the foot, creating homeostasis or balance in the brainstem. This prime real estate in your brain is responsible for automatic functions like balance, stability, strength, power, range of motion, flexibility, mobility, and so much more. The Vox patch works in the same way, but it uses receptors on other parts of your body to elicit the same response. The moment your receptors touch this Vox technology, it opens up communication pathways throughout your unique system, allowing you to become instantly stronger, more balanced, have less pain, and increased range of motion. In short, Vox technology helps optimize the brainstem, allowing your body to self-regulate and self-heal. Vox products are non-electrical, non-invasive, have no negative side effects, no metals, magnets, or plastics, and are drug-free. Results are instant, scientifically proven, and time-tested. For a limited time, buy any 2 items and get 1 pair of socks or thin insoles free, a savings of up to $50. Contact Diane Dinkmeyer at voxlife.com for more info. That's Diane Dinkmeyer at voxlife.com. You'll be glad you did.
I'd say very similarly. I think empathy is key, or at least striving for empathy, that impulse to strive for empathy, to find information about things you don't understand. I am so hypersensitive now, more than I've ever been in my life. And I didn't grow up in America, so I don't have the same perspective as most people who have grown up in America about racism. But I've seen it throughout my life, growing up in Latin America, growing up in Europe. I've seen it, as a person who is full spectrum humanity, as you expressed. I can totally resonate with that. I've not experienced any direct toward me that I know of, any ism against me as who I am, but I strive to empathize. And because I didn't grow up in America, I really have felt, even though I lived there for quite some time, a number of decades before leaving again, I wanted to be able to be as educated as I could about the African American experience, dating back to African history. I've been studying African history during this time, or these last few months, and I've actually become a Patreon member of a wonderful YouTube page called Home Team History. Have you heard of this?
I have not. Please tell me more.
Check it out. And I will, for listeners, I will put a link in the description of this episode, as well as links to the books you referenced, Terry Lynn.
Oh, thank you.
So, make sure, send me a complete list if you want, and I'll put resources. I always like to do that for listeners.
Oh, I'd love to do that. I think everybody should read these books.
Absolutely. And, there is, part of this fragility, I think, is really about ignorance. It's simply ignorance. And the more we know about the history that precedes American history, the history of slavery, the history of Black slavery, the history of the enslavement of people throughout history. I hesitate even to use the word slaves because these were enslaved people. I feel that it's important that we validate the humanity. And I think that the terminology that we use, correct me if I'm wrong or if you feel differently, but I feel that the terminology that has been educated into us in American education has dehumanized enslaved people in a great way, and has done a great disservice. But again, like you said, this is a time where we can take a half step back and check ourselves and say, oh, okay, well, now I'm afforded this gift of study time. Not only study of history, but study of my own biography. How has all of this information hit me throughout my life, no matter what stage of life, if I'm in my teens or my 20s up to my senior years?
Absolutely. And one of the things I think we fail to look at on a more global perspective is that slavery is still happening. Now we've changed the name to human trafficking, But
That's right.
$150 billion a year for selling and buying human beings.
That's
So
right.
we as humans are still in that slavery, slave owner mentality. And until we fully address this, it's going to continue to happen.
Well, and it starts with a conversation like this and people listening and people taking part. I encourage listeners to write in with comments or questions so that we can keep the conversation aloft. There have been so many subjects since April when I started the Lost Travelers series that all these great questions have come forward, and I've sought out people who have particular experiences in their biographies that can speak eloquently and intelligently about these subjects. I know that, and I really want to know more deeply for you personally, if you don't mind going there, given your family history in the police force, there has been such a target toward police and policing in America right now. And a lot of it has to do with the way that white officers have treated African American people, even in the force, throughout the force's history. And nobody seems that shocked or surprised that the activity has continued in singling out and profiling people of color and murdering them. What is your experience around that, having been an officer yourself?
Well, that's a deep question. There's so much
I
to
know.
unpack there.
Don't feel like you have to.
Oh, no. But I was
really
a police officer for 10 years. And as an African American female police officer, just my presence at many of and I worked in an African American, basically African American community. Just my presence on many of these calls reined in the behavior of some of the white police officers that would have acted worse had I not been there. I was considered a goody two shoes. I've carried that little moniker all of my life. I was considered a goody two shoes, and it would rein in their behavior. So they would act much more respectful, much more civilly with people when I showed up, just because a Black female officer was there.
Right. It diffused the tension of it.
It wasn't so much diffuse the tension as they just knew that they couldn't act out their worst impulses. And then there were other white officers that I learned tons from. I had an amazing training officer. His name was Bob Bilstein. He was a fantastic training officer. I had amazing sergeants. I had co-workers. Captain Jennifer Steck was an amazing person to be friends with and to watch her go up through the ranks. We went through the academy together. So, I mean, they're really wonderful people and really dreadful people. There were dreadful Black officers. There was a Black officer that I was terrified of, absolutely terrified of. And he told me at one point that if he ever caught me alone, he was just going to do stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there were really good people of every color on the department. But when you look at who you're sending to someone's home, when George Floyd got killed on the 1st of May, I got to stand on the Capitol steps in Denver and talk about, and I hate the term defund the police. We need to restructure.
Yes. Who came up with that?
I think they did that to, I don't know. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. But
totally.
Restructure, redesign, reincorporate the police into our communities. And, use social workers when it's appropriate to go out there and handle the mental health calls. And if you need a police officer to be with that social worker, send the police officer to be with the social worker. There are so many different ways to handle this. And there are really wonderful police departments in other countries that are making amazing inroads in how they do their policing. We should study them and incorporate the things that are working for them into our policing here in the United States. And we need to take the focus off of imprisoning people so that they can be corporate slaves, get free labor because you committed a misdemeanor or a felony, but it shouldn't be free. We should be re-educating these people so that they can live in society and be productive members of our society.
So do you think it's systemic racism, or do you think it's, as we hear the terminology, that there are a few bad apples?
It's both.
Yeah.
It is both. It is systemic racism when you can't get hired if your name sounds too African or too Asian or too whatever, and that application goes in the waste bin just because of that. That's systemic. But the other parts of this are there are bad apples. We have to have a better screening of human beings, not only in our police departments, but our politicians. We need to screen out sociopaths and psychopaths. They should never be in charge of anything that is about human welfare.
Right.
They don't care. And
don't.
They're incapable of caring. And
it's going to be a big shift. Big shifts, plural.
Yeah.
Your generous sponsorship and individual support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a charitable project under the fiscal sponsorship of United Charitable, a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The Lost Travelers Club focuses primarily on the needs of parents who have outlived their beloved children. We recently launched our new Brain Candy Project wing, providing art supplies to children still struggling with critical or terminal health-related conditions. We hope to raise enough funds to launch Brain Candy, an arts and literature magazine created by and for these young people. Find out more at www.braincandy.online. Thank you.
And meanwhile, here we are using art as a tool to facilitate and instigate some of those shifts. Talk about your art. Talk about your storytelling, your artwork. I know a lot of artists out there in the world who are expected to work for nothing, which adds to the slavery mentality, I think. Oh, you'll get great exposure. Nope.
I literally just had this conversation yesterday. Oh my
See, God. I have it all the time. I have it all the time. Yes. And what do we do? What do we do about it? We have to be vocal, and we have to use our art as a tool for communication. So how do you do that? How do you personally do that?
Oh, well, I'm sitting here surrounded by canvases. Some are completed, some are not. And one of the ways that I do this is I am self-producing my own one-woman show called Stolen Lives. And I've been painting Stolen Lives for about 2.5 years now. It was set up to be a one-woman show in March, but of course, COVID came and closed down all the venues. So for me, as a child, I wanted to be a painter, a dancer, a singer, anything with performing arts. And my parents didn't see that as a way to make a living. So that was not supported. So I put that aside I went to Colorado Women's College for about 3 years, did not graduate, and I was studying psychology. And we got to the part in the psychology department where you have to torture the rats with electricity. And that was when I dropped out of psychology. I was like, I am not going to be torturing rats, because we already know the scientific results of electrocuting someone and doing it over and over again. It was just cruel. We already know what happens when you do that. So I didn't see the point of that. So then I went back to theater for about 3.5 years, and I was with the Denver Black Arts Company. I did several productions with them, and I just really wanted to do my art. But then I got married and I had a child, and I couldn't support my child because I knew I wasn't going to stay married. So that was how I ended up becoming a police officer. So I was a police officer for 10 years. And by the end of my 10-year stint, every morning when I got up, I was sobbing before I had to go to work. Putting on that uniform felt like I was putting on somebody else's dirty underwear. It was just gross, and I knew it was the wrong thing for me. So I dropped out of the police department, retired, and decided to go back to college. So I went to Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design for a couple of years.
Great school.
Yeah, it was a fabulous experience. And Bob Thomas was the most incredible color theory professor I've ever experienced. Then I dropped out of that, went back to University of Colorado, finally got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting and Drawing in 2017. And every door of possibility in the world opened up for me after that. I have been on podcasts. I've been featured in different productions. It's been amazing. So that is my roundabout way of getting back to art in my life.
That's great. And what are you able to, aside from the show, are you going to do that, by the way, virtually, or are you going to wait until it's able to be seen live, or how are you working that?
Right now, I'm working on making it into a television script. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm also working towards getting my second small business loan. So yeah, I'm a business. I'm incorporated. Terry Lynn Moore, artist and storyteller. So I'm incorporated. I got my first business loan, got it paid off, and used those funds to promote myself and do marketing and create an infrastructure for my business. Now I need to deepen that infrastructure. So I'm going to apply for my second business loan. But it's kind of been a little bit on hold because my mother is critically ill.
Yes.
Yeah, she's going to be 91 in February. So I'm her primary caretaker. And that's kind of put everything to the side a little bit. So that's where
well, you're a superhero. Having been a caretaker myself, a caregiver, I know that it does take a certain quality of soul that not everyone has. So I'm sure that's deeply informing you and your journey and where you're headed from here.
Well, it's been amazing. My mother, when I was in university at University of Colorado, my mother started developing signs of Alzheimer's, and I was living in her home with her. And I went from being her, live-in adult child, to being her full-time live-in caretaker. And her descent into Alzheimer's was incredibly it was incredibly violent. So
how did you meet that? I mean, you had your background in mental health counseling, which I'm sure serves you really well. But when it's so personal, where does the shift happen in you to meet it?
I think that's who I've been my entire life. I am the person when many years ago, my brother was married to his first wife, and they had a child who was critically ill.
Hmm.
And the baby died in our arms.
Hmm.
And when the baby died, my sister-in-law and I dressed the baby, washed the baby, prepared the baby for burial. It's just who I've always been. And that's always, for every death in our family, I'm the person that takes care of that. And it's not a burden. It is a privilege to be the person that is able to do that. And it's also very hard at times, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I just did that for my mother when her mother died in 2010 at the age of 101.
Wow.
I was the person that went to the funeral home and identified the body and selected the shroud and did all that stuff because my mother was not able to.
Right.
So that is something that's really important.
21st century life skills warrant 21st century education. Every human being is born into a classroom, each of us given the same homework, the same core assignments. Personal care skills, emotional literacy, financial literacy, environmental literacy. These and other essential life skills are unique, learned and used by each of us every day of our lives. Indeed, they are the common thread in our humanity, core to individuals and the communities they construct, surviving and thriving. Raising the bar on life skills education for all. This is the mission of Parenting 2.0. Visit www.parenting2pt0.org for more information.
You know, it sounds like there have been a lot of parallels, and I'm excited to. I mean, this is not even close to enough time to get through everything I want to ask you and talk to you with you about. You know, but I understand firsthand the role of the caregiver and as sacred and how it deepens us. I did an episode on grief and grieving. It's an essential life skill we don't do well enough at large globally, and I'm hoping to change that or at least contribute. As we're wrapping up, thank you, by the way, for sharing.
Oh, yeah.
As we're wrapping this up, think of 3 things off the top of your head that are practical tools that you have in your kit that you can encourage listeners to take away from this experience, this conversation, or it could be something we haven't even talked about yet.
Number one, of course, for me is education.
Yeah.
Whatever arena you are choosing to have impact in, make sure you know as much as humanly possible in that arena. Next would be self-care. Take care of yourself because you can't make forward progress if you are suffering and are unwell. You have to work on yourself, go to therapy if you need to, have, you know, someone that you can talk to about issues that you're experiencing. And third, find joy wherever you are. Look for, yeah, just find joy wherever you are. So that would be my takeaways.
That's a tough one, joy, at this time in our world. I think a lot of people, it's elusive, isn't it, for a lot of people?
I don't know. I think I think it's a change of reference. It's, it doesn't have to be everything in my life is fabulous and perfect.
Right.
It can be something little like, I am growing a house plant and it is thriving because of my love and my care. I have a bird. It sings every morning. It sings every morning. That's joy. It can be little. The love that you have for your children or your pets, that is joy. So it doesn't have to be great big. It doesn't have to be, everything in my world is perfect. It can be the little things.
Beautiful. And often connected to nature.
Yes, absolutely.
And even if you're on lockdown, you can't get out of your house or your apartment, open a window, listen to the birds. Even if you're in the middle of the city, listen for sounds of nature around you. They're there, whether it's the wind going by or a bird or people laughing somewhere, a baby crying or laughing somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
Part of who we are. So listen, thank you so much for giving of yourself and your time. And let's do this again. Let's do a part 2.
Oh, that would be lovely.
I would love.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you. And all the best. And give my mom a big hug if you see her.
Oh, absolutely. I'm planning on seeing her soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Lost Traveler with Henry Cameron Allen. For more information, please visit www.henryallen.org. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let's all keep striving for a better world. Thank you.